Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I just want to jump in here and introduce this vlog because you know what's happening based on the title. But yes, this is going to be my spoiler-filled Wind and Truth reading vlog. I have the audiobook available through my library for about 18 days. It better take me less time than that to read this. And I'm so excited. If you're here right now, you've probably seen my other ones, so welcome back. Don't forget to like this video. This is the 5th book in the Stormlight archives, so the last one we're going to be getting for quite a while in this series. I think bad things are going to happen. I'm not optimistic of what this experience will be. I think it'll be good, but it'll hurt. I've been very surprised by how much I can't stop thinking about these books since finishing all of them. They are really a step above in so many different areas, and he's kind of affected how I engage with media since then, but it's okay. I'm happy about it, and I wouldn't say it ever detracts from my enjoyment of other things, but it is eye-opening how much I've loved this series since stepping away from it for a couple weeks and waiting for this to come out. So yes, did that make much sense? Who knows? But I'm so excited to be reading this again. I think it's gonna be so good. It's slipping. That's it. As always, this vlog will be entirely spoiler-filled, so please be prepared for that. And I'll check back in once I've read some of it. I just wanted to give you an idea of how windy it is on this day that I am starting this book. I am borderline a little worried about tornadoes. It's gotten spooky out here very quickly. So this is being broken up where instead of having the 5 parts like we had in the previous 4 books, it's actually broken up into 10 days because, launching back into this novel, we are 10 days out from the battle between champions. Dalinar still has not technically made his selection, but Cheyenne from Cheyenne Buck Books, her theory is that Adolin's going to end up to be his champion, and I really am into that. I'm very, very hopeful on that. I think that that would be my favorite concept right now, but I'm sure whatever happens will be nuts. But yeah, so it's going to be broken up into 10 parts instead, so that's probably how I'll structure most of my check-ins, but we're officially diving in. Hello friends, today is a new day. It's the next day of reading Wind and Truth. I have accomplished 154 pages. So we are officially in part 2 now. I do want to show you my snail bookmark that I got from Jade's Patreon, and I think it just really goes with the vibes of reading such a big book. So today has been kind of chill. I've just been reading. I did go to the gym because it's January 7th, and I wanted to say I went to the gym the first week of the new year, at least. So I did that. And then I went and got some groceries, and August and I cuddled for a while. Charmin and I cuddled separately as well for a while. And I've just been listening along to my audiobook. I did want to mention, you know how it was super windy the other day? Yeah, branches did actually fall all over our yard, and pretty decently sized ones. If that hit a car at the right angle, car would have been fucked up. So I at least wasn't crazy. The wind got scary, but then nothing happened, so that's good. Now, in terms of my thoughts on the first part of this book, I'm really happy that Aaron read this. Literally, he started just a few days before we were both going to, and it literally took him 3 pages to be oh, you need to read The Lost Metal before we read this one. So I went ahead and I made a little detour to read that, and I'm happy I did because or kind of not light spoilers, but spoilers for The Lost Metal I'm going to include now too. I do recommend you read it before this one if you haven't yet. So go do that and come back. But that's your warning. Kelsier is in this so much, and I did not expect that. Like, even just in the first part, he's been mentioned or talked to at least 2 or 3 times, and that's mind-blowing. He's got that name of, like, Thakador for, like, the leader of the Ghost Bloods. We've seen him as that, but then we've also seen people directly reference him as Kelsier, so I love to see it happen. I did not expect so much overlap in these 2 series when I started reading. I know now, upon looking at interviews, that he did plan for them to overlap a lot, but seeing it actually happen is a crazy experience. The other big thing about this first part that got me was Kaladin saying goodbye to Bridge 4 and getting his Bridge 4 tattoo was really emotional. I was tearing up a little bit, and I marked a little bit of that interaction because I just thought it was beautiful and really well done. And it's so interesting to see him advocate for himself more. Shallan saying, you know, we could probably make Dalinar change his mind. We need everyone that we can in this fight, every soldier. And Kaladin to stand his ground and choose what's better for him, but ultimately what he thinks might be better for the overarching situation anyway, just happens to, I don't know, I'm so proud of him for stepping away and doing what he thinks he needs to. There's not really anything else I could super update with. Part 1 has just obviously been day 1. Characters are establishing what they're doing. We're catching up with them. It's only been literally like a couple hours since the book before ended. So we're on day 2 now. This is actually like one of the longer days based on the chapter breakdowns. So I'm going to go read some more and I'll be back with my thoughts on that. What's going on? Are you a good boy? Can you pretend like you love me? Hi friends, I just want to update you because I finished part 2, day 2 of Wind and Truth. That was definitely one of the longer days according to the map layout at the beginning. I think I might have mentioned that. So it definitely had a lot going on. Each day is focusing on every character in a way that I think is a pretty good balance. Past books tend to focus on one more heavily than another. And this one, I definitely feel like we're jumping between perspectives, but it doesn't feel choppy. It's definitely like intentional points that it's switching, but it's definitely keeping me engaged. I'd say I'm reading this probably way faster than any of the other books that I picked up from this series. I do have some general thoughts because I've been asked what I think about the writing, and I've seen some reviews on the writing being not very good. And I'm surprised. I haven't seen anything that's been a problem yet. I've seen some people who say like they're really upset that they had a lot of like grammatical errors in their book, or there was a lot of editing issues that needed to be done. Again, I haven't seen anything yet. He does have a tendency to not be very subtle. That would probably be my only critique on the writing, is he just tends to really pound those messages in. And I don't necessarily think it's bad. Like, it's an interesting balance to try and make, because what he's pounding in, like the discussions of mental health, are what makes me love his books so much more than other fantasy I've picked up. Is like, I love that element that he adds, but then at the same time he's really like, see what I'm trying to say? And I'm like, yes, I do see what you're trying to say. So give or take, but I think overall it's not really bothering me. I do love that there is a lot more casual queer rep in this book. One of my biggest complaints reading all of his books was that I just didn't feel like it was queer enough. And I don't necessarily mean that in the way that it has to have queer moments, but as a queer person, I wanted those elements. So that's making me really happy that we're just seeing it pop up more. And I think it's the perfect amount where there's like a little splash, and it's the casual where I want, where we don't need this like overarching story about someone coming out and coming to terms with it, but just little itty bitty splashes of potential romance is perfect. This part also had a lot of discussions about Adolin and his anger at his father, and I find it so interesting because Adolin was one of my favorite characters from the other books, and he still is like a favorite. Like, he's justified in his anger to Dalinar, but I love Dalinar so much that I'm like, Adolin, cut him some slack, please. So I'm stressed about that, but it is adding a really interesting dynamic. And then Navani is like trying to get them to talk about their feelings, and they're just not going to because they're hard-headed. But there's also like, you know, the world's about to end, so maybe you should have that conversation before it's too late. This section does end with Dalinar and Navani entering into the, I don't know which realm they went straight into. I was just having a hard time understanding. I thought they were going to the spiritual realm, but then Wit said that they were in Shadesmar, so maybe it was just the cognitive realm, and then they'll go to the spiritual from there. I don't really know quite yet, but they opened a perpendicularity in the well area, and freaking Gavilar has freaking fallen into it with them because Wit didn't realize he was there because he wasn't supposed to be there, and now who knows what's gonna happen to him. I'm very worried about him. Lift and Gav's relationship is everything for me. I'm not a die-hard Lift fan, but the way that she interacts with Gav is actually winning me over more than any of the other books did. So loving that. I'm kind of wondering if she is gonna be the champion. Like, I'm kind of wondering if she's gonna have to be awesome and fight Odium herself. And I wonder if that's like why she was given this ability to go between the realms, is because he's gonna like play dirty or something. I'm really intrigued to see how that all fans out. I'm also pretty sure Lift is one of the perspectives for the next arc, so I wonder if her and Gav will continue a friendship into the next arc. I don't know if his name was one of the perspectives we'd get, but I hope so. I mean, it is also possible that bad things happen, but we're gonna pretend that's not the case yet. Finally, because I've been yapping for a second now, my only other thought on this part is now I'm wondering, because Kaladin has gone on this journey with Seth to try and help him as well as Ishar, and he is hearing the wind speak to him, and it definitely feels like it's honor talking to him. There's even a part where it says like we must preserve the remnant of honor that we can, and so I'm like, is Kaladin gonna become honor? Because the Stormfather is reluctant to encourage Dalinar to pursue becoming honor, which is, I mean, makes sense. I can't believe he's trying to be honor. Not in a bad way, at least. He's not trying to be like, I want this power. He's just trying to save his family and cannot figure out how. But the Stormfather says the person who becomes honor must not want it. And I think that was a similar messaging and metaphor, basically, that we saw in Mistborn with Vin taking up the power, but she didn't want it. So, anyway, I think that I'm wondering if Kaladin is going to be the one to pick up honor and become honor. So, I'll keep you updated. I don't have much to do today except read. Like, today is planning to be a read day. My vlog here is gonna be a lot of me cuddling animals and me reading 1,000 pages. But if I add too many other B-rolls and I yap, this vlog will be too long. So I'm gonna go read, and I'll check back in a little bit after day 3. Hi friends. So I am at about 51% now of this gargantuan Wind and Truth. I cannot believe I've gotten here. I still have a lot to go. I just started day 6 in the story, so I have a couple days to update you on, but not a ton happened in those few days. I'd say you do get a lot of plot progression in terms of learning more about situations, but in terms of like climaxes, we're nowhere near that yet, so it's still pretty steady and slow. But I do find myself more engaged than some of the other books that I read, so I'd say I'm enjoying it. I have a lot of note taking going on. I do find how much we're learning about Zeth's story to be really, really interesting. Brandon Sanderson is really good at giving you hints on who's important in earlier moments of the series, but in a way that you don't always expect that character to be as prevalent as they are later on. Zeth, for example, like I kind of knew he'd be a important character when he was just an assassin in the first few books, but I didn't expect him to be so prevalent to the main storyline, if that makes any sense, in like a good way. I also noticed that while he's going through some things, the stones are crumbling on the arches for the chapter headers, and that's making me nervous. I don't really have any other major thoughts otherwise. I, of course, cannot find an example of it right now, but I did notice that there were some pages in this US copy where the ink is really, really messed up. Some of the pages are like super, super faded to the point that I can barely read what's on them. I obviously don't think that has anything to do with the writing of the story or Brandon Sanderson's work on it, but I do just find it interesting that that was not an issue that I had with my UK copies. The only other thing, though, that I have to think of, because now I'm looking a lot at the writing because I've had so many people ask me what I think about the writing in this book and the editing in general, and he says storms a lot. All the characters are always like, storms, this is bad. And it's kind of like their expression of swearing, you know, cursing. And I just think it's happening a lot, but at the same time, fair. A lot of characters are going through really bad situations. I would be cursing a lot as well. So I think it's funny because there's not a lot of other language he uses other than storms, but it's realistic and it's fair. I would probably just say fuck like over and over again. So I'm going to go keep reading because I need to make some more progress on this if I want this vlog up on schedule. Hi friends, so it's been a couple days, again, both literally and literarily. I'm now up to day 8. Day 8 has just started, so we are officially in the last 3 days of Wind and Truth before the Contest of Champions. I'm very, very anxious. I do have some thoughts to share with you about what I've read. I try to take notes as accurate to the section that I was reading as I can, but because I just can't put this down, I haven't checked it in a while, so I might be a little all over the place in this update. Firstly, I just want to mention that the interludes between day 6 and day 7 were absolutely wild. I was literally shook to my core. That's the one where Taravangian Diem, as I called him, the Odium Taravangian hybrid, destroys Carbranth and all of his family in it. That literally blew my mind. And then we also get the section from DL and some other people that we haven't met before as far as I'm aware. And it's them leaving Roshar during like the destruction of it. And that also has me very shook because I'm like, what is going on with that? Are we going to find out more about people who escaped Roshar? We haven't had anything else about those people, but I wonder how it's going to be prevalent later on. Because obviously, you know, Hoyt and everybody travels between, but were there a bunch of people who were here on Roshar that fled? Like, I just need a little more information than that one interlude. We were finally learning more about Honor's betrayal and how it was kind of his fault that we betrayed the singers, and I thought that that was really interesting. I then was not really surprised, though, when you find out that the Stormfather is obviously connected to Honor and has some sort of remnant of his experience, or is Honor himself. We have not gotten quite more information on that. At the end of day 7 is when Dalinar's like, you have to finally show me so you don't bear the burden on your own. And Stormfeather's like, it's gonna destroy us, you're gonna hate me. And Dalinar's like, show me anyway. Which I will say has been going on a little too much in this book. It is like a little too edging of information constantly. I like the 10 days as a concept, but again, I just find it to be pretty repetitive in a way that's a little frustrating. And I just don't think that every book necessarily needed to be bigger than the one before. Sorry, something's making noise outside. Sherman's freaking out. It's okay, Sherman. You're a good boy. As I was just saying, I just don't think that every book needs to necessarily be longer than the one before just because it's a big series. And I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but I do think there are sections that could have been, if not cut, then at least reduced. You know what I mean? Also, sorry, my camera stand is so crappy. You're just like slowly falling. That's a little bit better for a moment. It'll fall again, I promise you. One scene that actually made me laugh out loud so hard was when Kaladin was talking to the High Spren attached to Szeth, and the High Spren was seeking Kaladin for therapy help, and he was frustrated that Kaladin wasn't just giving them the answers, and he called Kaladin an anarchist, and I laughed out loud. I thought that was actually hilarious, just because it just was so funny to watch Kaladin be like, I'm not an anarchist, and the Spren was like, you said you are, and it's just, I really liked that scene. But Adolin's leg getting during the battle with that giant fused was insane. I don't believe it's been healed yet. I feel like it might have been and I missed it, but as far as I'm aware, they were just like, we'll heal it when we can all be back together again. And part of me is like, what if all of the Radiants lose their powers by the end of this book and then Adolin's leg is never healed? And speaking of Adolin, and then inherently Shallan, we got some wonderful experience of Shallan going back to their wedding day, and I was just absolutely hooked in that section. I thought it was gorgeous. I loved for her that she was able to re-experience her wedding day with such fond memories, and seeing how it just, you know, in the other book it kind of gets skipped and we don't really get to see that much of it, so to get to see like their oaths to each other, it was just so beautiful. And then to find out Shallan's mother is the Herald Chana, and Chana was at the wedding, and to find out that she didn't, like, she did do this terrible thing of trying to kill Shallan, but the fact that her hand was kind of being forced and she was feeling insanity and she did feel remorse for it is so interesting. And then Shallan being able to have the conversation with her and forgive her was just incredible. I really, really liked how that was played out. I hope that we see another scene of them together in some extent. You know, Shallan's a character that the first book didn't like her. I didn't feel like I was particularly interested in her story, or I just felt as though the writing around her, it would always say she was so smart and witty, but we wouldn't really see it happen other than a few jokes. And so the journey that we've taken with her, where we've seen her grow into herself so much more and truly, if not grow from her trauma, learn to start accepting it and accepting herself. And I just really love how that's playing out. I think it's being done really well. Those are kind of all my rambly thoughts on the last few days that I read. My only other one that I have not quite said is I don't feel like these two books have had enough Dalinar. And I know that's kind of counteractive to what I said earlier about how Dalinar sections are kind of repetitive in this book. So it's not necessarily that I feel like we should be following him through all the visions. I mean, we are, obviously, and it is getting repetitive. I don't even know if this is making sense, but he's my favorite character. Of like the first 3 books, we had so much Dalinar, and then the last book, it was like nothing. And in this book, for the story, I don't know, I'm so torn, because I know that he is so prominent and central to this story, but I think what Brandon Sanderson's trying to do here is show how important everybody is, bigger picture, more than just Dalinar. But I've also just grown so attached to Dalinar that I want more Dalinar. So, I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense. I just feel like I'm not getting enough of him, or what I am getting of him is not what I'm wanting of him. I'm just seeing him kind of struggle with the same issues that we have before. The biggest difference now, though, is I do like that we're seeing him, you know, he's so angry at his younger self and the actions of his younger self, and then you're also seeing those actions be affecting young Gav as he's following his grandfather into this spiritual realm, and he's witnessing some of the atrocities that his grandfather committed, or just, you know, the way that his grandfather would just, he's just very hard-headed, and that is his method for dealing with problems. And to see Dalinar see his actions reflected in his grandson's eyes, I find really, really interesting. And I really do hope that nothing happens to Gav, and I would like to see more of his perspective in the next book. I am so sad Elhokar died earlier. I wish Gav could have that relationship with his father, but that is a rant for another time. I'm gonna go now because, to be truthful, I want to keep reading. I want to get this vlog up in just about 2 days, and I have about 9 hours of audiobook time left. That's sped up. It's really about 18 hours, but that means I need to get a kick to my step, put a pep in my step, and get reading. I'm officially on day 10. I cannot believe it. I have so little to read now. Like, we're really in the end game now, besties. I cannot believe this is happening. I have some thoughts to share before I dive into this final day, this official contest of champions. We have found out that Hoid is a Dawn Shard, and there's 4 Dawn Shards. Don't really know much about what that means yet, but that was a really interesting revelation. The scene of Kaladin defeating, quote-unquote, Nail with the power of the flute was very, very fun. Obviously, that's not, like, the bigger message of it, but it was kind of power of the flute scene, and I just thought it was really cool. It was really different to a lot of how the other scenes have gone down that I've read of his. I know I'm kind of just running through these thoughts. It's just because I have a lot of them, and I want to get back to reading. The moment when Sigil renounces his oaths to protect his spren was really hard for me. That's probably the first time I've officially teared up since reading this. I definitely marked it, of course, in my, like, annotating situation. That was, like, literally, like, gut-wrenching. I was really, really upset, and it was so brave of him to do it. I like that Lopin immediately is like, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do, and it really was. Speaking of the other, more emotional part that also had me tearing up, and I also, you know, I don't really know if I cried actually at the Sigil part, but I definitely cried at Adolin fighting after he, you know, his leg is still gone and he is standing and trying to defend, and he comes to terms with the fact that he wants to have one more conversation with his father. Like, he is about to be killed, and all he can think about is how he wants to be able to believe and trust in his father, and he wants to at least have that one more conversation with him. And oh my god, I'm gonna cry right now. That was so upsetting. So I was so happy when he was brought with the Emperor to hide, and I just really, if I don't see a Dalinar Adolin conversation before this book is over, I'm gonna be devastated. And if that conversation happens while Dalinar is dying, I'm gonna be even worse. Or if Adolin's dying, I'm tearing up. I gotta stop catastrophizing because I don't know what's gonna happen yet. I can cry when it's happening. I also, on a funnier note then, I cannot stop picturing Woody Harrelson as Taravangian. I think that if there is a film done, he would do a great job. As Haymitch, he perfectly portrayed that kind of moments of being dumb or appearing dumb for a facade, but actually being really cunning and smart. And I could just see him flipping the switch really quick in the moments where Terravodium is, you know, fucking with everybody. That's just a random fan cast that will not leave my head. It might have to do with the fact that we're getting the new Haymitch book, that it's just in my mind, but it's in my mind. Even though this book is so large, I would say I am really happy with the overall pacing. I know it's taken me a couple days to read it, but like, that makes sense. I wasn't really in a rush to read this fast. I'm still well ahead of schedule. I think I have like 7 days on my audiobook, and I started with 18 when I started reading it. So it's taking me about a week to read this huge monster, but I'm super engaged. I don't really find myself bored the way I did in other stories. I do think it's still a little bit long, but the chapters are all relatively short, or if not the shortest, you know, no more than 6 pages, 6 to 7. And I think that that just really helps you keep engaged. And then in those pages, in those chapters, you're switching from multiple perspectives. We're all in these individual journeys, and that just keeps you hooked throughout the entire thing. One of the bigger details that I noticed that I'm just kind of thinking right now is Hoyt and Navani were just having their conversation where they were talking about, like, what are they going to do? And Hoyt is like, well, I think Dalinar is going to end up basically being both sides champions. Like, there's no real other option. And he names everybody who cannot interfere. And he says he doesn't think that he, Navani, the Stormfather, or Dalinar, like, he's like, I don't think there's anything these people could do. The only person he doesn't name, I think he even names, like, the wind or something, but the only ones that he does not name are cultivation. And I'm wondering if cultivation is going to have some sort of play in the end, because cultivation has essentially created Taravangian as odium, and that is making it another level of stress and difficulty for our characters. So I'm wondering if that was like a little nod at her involvement later on. Look how cute Charmin is. Look how cute he jumped up. Anyway, I'm gonna go keep reading because I'm having a great time, and when you see me, it'll be the end of this book. I might insert some clips if I start sobbing, because I'm sure that'll happen. And then I will be in here to wrap up this vlog.
Are you fucking kidding me? If odiums? It can't fucking be Gav. It can't. It can't. I refuse. I'm quite pissed right now.
I don't know what to come on here and tell you, but I did finish The Wind and Truth, and I have a lot of notes that I've taken. I am hurted. I have some things to go over that happened on the last day, day 10, but if you are wanting to just get out of here, I think my final rating, I'm going to just give it a 5, because in terms of torture and feelings and just overall of the entire series, I'm just going to give it a 5. Maybe I'll think harder about it, but right now I need some emotional distance from this book. I think each storyline is wrapped up really well. Even the wrapping hurting me, it was still really well done. Charmin, can you stop barking? I'm just in so much pain. You know what I mean? I'm hurted, and I'm hurted. A lot of my opinions continue throughout, though, about, like, some of the language getting a little bit repetitive, but, you know, I'd rather have all those inclusions of mental health than none at all. I'd rather have it be overt than excluded, so I'm not going to have that impact my rating, but I do still think it's worth critiquing the overtness. And, you know, just because he's an iconic author does not mean you can't still find little things that you would improve. It's kind of like when you get like a work report. It's like you can't put yourself as the best, or else your boss can't put like room for improvement. You know what I mean? I'm really tired of the fact that every single fucking vlog, when I mention loving a character, that character is immediately like, or tortured. Like, there is no kindness to any of these characters for me. Like Gav, poor Gav. That is criminal activity, Odium. Like, you were already bad, but that was like inhumane to keep Gavilar trapped. Gavinor, whatever, I'm mad. to keep him trapped in the spiritual realm for most of his for his entire existence of like 15, 20 years, and then to make him fight Dalinar, like go to prison. Sanderson, for even thinking of that, prison. And then I wasn't quite right about Kaladin becoming Honor, but I was on the right track because now he's a herald and like the leader of the heralds, and now it's his responsibility to help them deal with a lot of their trauma before it's time to fight in the next arc. So it's really exciting though that we are going to see more Kaladin, theoretically, I assume, but I'm just happy that like Aaron and I, both of our faves died, but at least Kaladin will return. And Dalinar's death, oh boy, I'm sad about it. I am actually, like, what makes me nauseous and sick to my stomach is the fact that Adolin did not get his goodbye with his father. Like, that is so heart-wrenching for me. I do like that he says that, like, he felt his father, though, but sorry, I just did my makeup. I can't be doing this. But the fact that he just wanted to say goodbye to him, I'm really sad for him. I really, really love Adolin, and I'm just really sad for Dalinar. Oh, anyway, let me get this together. Oh, this is not the kind of book I recommend discussing when you have somewhere to be, like work in just a few minutes. Oh my god, and then when Seth went and found his little wool sheep and Kaladin's horse from Tien, I hope he saves it for Kaladin, and I hope Kaladin gets it when he comes back. I like that we get a little nod that Seth is gonna be okay from this, and we see that he has a wife. She's the one who was writing the words of the Knights of Wind and Truth, and I'm happy that you have that acknowledgement that she was one of the ones that helped him bury Kaladin, and I hope that he was able to heal and bond with her, and I'm excited to catch back up with a lot of these characters in the next arc. I hope we at least get a glimpse of most of them. Oh god, I'm a mess. Oh no, this is not good. That's not good. I was totally off track about cultivation. I don't have anything to say about that other than I was really off track and she left Roshar entirely. Sigil is now a Dawn Shard, which I'm really excited because we still need to read Sunlit Man, and that's supposed to follow Sigil, so I'm excited to see that journey continue. Retribution, I just haven't even talked about him, but he is now the Terra Odium Honor hybrid is Retribution, and he seems terrifying, and I love the fact that Dalinar, like, so much of his journey was how he felt guilt at the thought of unleashing this monster, or like, you know, caging this monster only for a future generation to deal with. Like, that was something that he was so struggling with. And to see him say, you know what, I can't win this battle, but we can't keep forcing it on the next century or the next generation 1,000 years from now. Like, Hoyd, you need to deal with this now. The rest of the Cosmere needs to deal with this now. We can't keep pushing it off and giving our descendants something horrible to deal with. We just can't do that. So he instead renounces his oath, which was a wonderful parallel to Sigil renouncing his oath. And even though it destroys Dalinar, I'm so happy that he didn't have to become Odium's slave and do horrible things. I'm so happy that he was able to die protecting Gav. And so now Gav could at least, you know, I hope that when we see him next, he has a different view of his grandfather, or at least a more complex view of his grandfather. I don't know if I mentioned this yet because I'm just really emotional, but I can't believe that Shallan is just stuck in Shadesmar, and her and Adolin now are separate. Like, Adolin has lost his father and potentially his wife, and he did gain Maya and all of the dead spread, and I love that scene. I just think this was really well done. If you can't tell, I'm very emotionally invested. I really look forward to the next arc, and I am actually already planning to reread most of the Cosmere with Emmett, my husband. He has been watching me read these books for the last year, and I was already excited to reread them. And he loves D&D, he loves fantasy, so he's decided that he will join me on this journey. It'll probably be a much slower journey. I don't think I'll do another year of Sanderson situation, but I do think I will jump in with his thoughts on the books and probably do like little mini reviews of them. So look forward to that. If you're interested, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because that is the end of the vlog. Let me know down below what you thought. Did this hurted you the way it hurted me? And I'm gonna go fix my makeup because I do have to go to work. So thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye!